That's right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. And my name is AJ Malillo.
I am Stephen Rombolo.
And as always, you can catch all of your Jersey First related content on Jersey First TV on YouTube, where you can check out Real Talk with Fernando, The Nader Narrative, and the rest of Bridging the Gap. You can also check us out on jerseyfirst.org, where you could sign up for our newsletter and sign the pledge. And as always, you can get us on demand anytime on NJ.com. Just search Bridging the Gap over there. Stephen, another week in the books. And how are we doing?
It was definitely in the books because that's where I spent most of my time, as I have every other week. It's we're officially past the midway point, at least on my end of things over at Barry, and it's really exciting. There's sort of like a new leaf was turned for all the 1Ls because we made it past the halfway point. So it's like you're halfway done, and it's like a quarter of the way, essentially. You're like halfway through the first half of the hardest year of school of your life. So everybody was excited. There's been a lot of camaraderie in the fact that we quote unquote made it so far. And everything's gearing up now, which I really like. I got some pretty intense projects coming that are going to demand, a lot of writing attention, which is something that I'm really, obviously I love to write. I think I'm a decent writer, so I really enjoy it. And that's about it. Just kind of gearing up for that, getting ready for maybe a quick trip back home or something. You never know. And falling into fall, as they say. I will say, down here in Florida, fall. Hello, wow, excuse me, just had a moment there. Down here in Florida, fall is way nicer than fall in New Jersey because I'm waking up and it's still in the 70s. Shorts and a t-shirt. I'm ready to roll. I've been hearing that back in the Northeast, it's like 40s, rainy, not too fun. Part of me misses it, but I definitely don't.
Well, it's 58 degrees and sunny right now. So, I mean, this is pretty nice. It's nice fall weather currently. I can't complain. I like a little bit of a chill in the air. I like a 65 and sunny personally. So, I love the fall. You know that, though.
Yeah. That's all right. But nothing new, nothing crazy, just another week.
There you go. That's good. That's good. Just another week over here too. You're like a 12th of the way through it. That's the best way to look at it, right? You're halfway through.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep breaking down the halves.
Exactly. I'm nearly halfway done with law school though.
Which is
after
crazy.
this semester. I'm officially one half done, which is nuts. You're right. I have a big 2 weeks coming up. I feel like I've been saying that October is going to be rough, but really, once I get over this 2 week hump, it's like not smooth sailing, but I'm going to feel a lot calmer because believe it or not, I don't get stressed out when it comes to final season. I enjoy final season of law school because it's a lot more independent. You're kind of you're done, especially that reading week. You're done with classes and you kind of teach yourself everything again. You go back over everything and you really like absorb it. And now you have this background of like having been in class and gone through the whole semester of learning that you can absorb all of the information through the whole thing. So I enjoy that aspect of it. It's fun. You're like there all day, just kind of hanging out and absorbing the information. And I just that's where I enjoy my time. Now, the next 2 weeks are going to be brutal, but we'll make it through. We'll make it through. Other than that, I would be remiss if I didn't give a quick shout out to a classmate of mine. His name is Nicholas Johnson. He wrote this book. I just got it. He gave me a little note in there. I'm very excited for it. I'm very proud of him. I think he's going to do incredible things out in the world once we get out there in the real world. I can't wait to read this. I will read it probably after these 2 weeks are up because I just simply won't have any time to do anything else. But I'm very excited for that. I'm very proud of him. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my man, Nick, because I'm sure this was a lot of work. He was writing it while in law school. I would imagine during our 1L year, right, which is amazing. And I can't wait to give it a read. So that's all I got over there. But
that's a tremendous accomplishment.
It really is. It really is. And I'll tell you this, everybody at the law school, all of the classmates were all super proud of him. And we can't wait. We can't wait to see everything that he accomplishes out there in the real world. He's a great guy. But with that, we do have a couple of stories to get to today, Stephen.
We
And
do.
I think the most appropriate place to start is what's going on over in Israel and the conflict between Israel and Palestine. The war, I guess, at this point, it's not a conflict. I think it's officially a war between the
Yeah.
two. Um, and look, I don't think that it's our place to give like super in-depth analysis or anything. I think obviously your thoughts and your prayers should be with the innocent people that are being affected in this issue. I will say this, um, personally, I struggle with finding a moral equivalency between these two sides. Um, I don't think that innocent people, women, children, should be getting killed at all in any conflict that goes on. Everybody should be doing their best to avoid that type of thing in these issues. War is a gross and scary part of human existence, but it is part of human existence and it always has been. But we should be doing our best to keep the innocent women and children out of this conflict completely. Um, I find it hard, like I said, to draw some sort of moral equivalency between a side that is paratrooping into concerts of just young 20-year-old kids dancing, um, and slaughtering them and kidnapping them and raping women, um, with the side that tries to send messages of getting people out of buildings before, unfortunately, they are bombed because that's where their leadership purposefully hides so that they can uh, claim some sort of equivalency. I find I find it difficult to do that, and so look, I think all of that being said, you know where I stand on the issue, and I just pray for some peace for all of the people who are losing loved ones, and innocent loved ones at that on either side of the issue.
Well said. I want to double down, and first and foremost, the most important thing for me to say is I agree with you. And when we had talked about this, we made it pretty clear that we felt this wasn't our space. Even though I would argue we're both qualified to speak about it, if we so chose. But I really think in moments like this, the gravity of this situation gets watered down by too many people giving their mostly uneducated opinions about something that is really serious and has really grave consequences. And like you said, we're not talking about, at this point, it's not a scuffle in the Middle East. This is a war. There are innocent men and women and children losing their lives. And I don't think that everybody needs to A, have, and B, speak their opinion on that. And it's really troubling to me that we're looking to certain kinds of people, celebrities, and people who are largely uninvolved in these conflicts with little to no understanding about them, to make some sort of a statement and take a position. And I don't think everybody needs to have a position on everything. That's kind of where I stand on this. Um, but all of those things being said, I'm not shy about my opinion on these things, and I'll just say that I in no way, shape, or form support the construct of Zionism. So take that as you wish. And I agree with you. There are some moral equivalencies that have to be grappled with. However, I think ultimately what this comes down to me is it's just another imperial nation, executing its will onto another less equipped and unfortunately, less apt to handle a conflict type population. So I'll echo the same sentiment. I wish nothing but the best thoughts and prayers for the innocent that are, unfortunately suffering as a result of this conflict. But in terms of, taking or espousing any position of support or, rejection, whatever we're going to call it, one way or the other, I don't think it's right. And truthfully, on a larger note, I don't think that this is really the biggest concern that America has at the moment. And I find it really concerning that we are so invested and, I would argue, distracted by it. We can offer, our moral support to the people of Israel if that's the position this country chooses to. We're throwing money away to Ukraine, so we might as well throw some money to Israel as well. But I think that's about as far as our involvement in this conflict should go. And the path that we're on doesn't bode well for that remaining the status quo. And that is something that legitimately worries me, but something that we don't have the time and or, true desire to speak about right now. But that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I think another lens of where we can sort of talk about this conflict, and bringing it back home, is talking about what broke earlier this morning, and we're reporting on. We're talking about this on the Thursday, the 12th. So, a 20-year-old New Jersey native who was a dual citizen of Israel and the United States was a soldier in the Israeli Defense Forces, and he was killed when Hamas attacked Israel last weekend. His name was Itay Glisko. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. He lived in Paramus, and he was the first person from New Jersey who authorities have confirmed had died from the Saturday attacks. Um, there are still several New Jerseyans in Israel that are missing in the wake of the violence, and we're waiting to hear back. Governor Murphy tweeted, "We are heartbroken to learn that the 20-year-old Itay Glisko, who spent his early years in Paramus, tragically lost his life during the attacks in Israel. My deepest condolences with Itay's family during this painful time." And obviously, I would say condolences to everyone and anyone who is still worried about their family members over in Israel, or even their family members that are living in Palestine, in Gaza right now. Obviously, thoughts with them, and hopefully they can hear from their family soon. Because, again, regardless, you don't want innocent people to lose their lives here. That's the least of what anybody wants, I think, on this issue. And so hopefully for your friends and families that are over there, they're safe, at least as safe as they can be, and you know survived through what's been going on.
Can I just make one comment about something else that was reported in that article? Just
Sure.
because I really, it's so distasteful to me. So this article continues on, and they mention a quote from Governor Murphy when he spoke on a call-in radio show last night, Wednesday night, and he called the Hamas attacks barbaric, agreeable, but then he followed up and he said, "quote They must be destroyed," and this is a sentiment that has been echoed by so many politicians in the United States, and it so clearly, to me, is warmongering. And when we live in, the modern era where war doesn't really happen, the last thing that I want to hear from any leader, no matter how much I like your policies or your positions, is that you want to execute some sort of, brutal violence against a group of people. I think
I think he's
warmongering out in
talking
public.
about. I think he's talking about Hamas as the group, the organization who are leading this, right, and leading this region, who are a terrorist group, and they're looked at as a terrorist group by the United States government because they often do things like hide behind women and children, and to do surprise attacks, do bombings in areas. Like, they're not calling for the destruction of the Palestinian people; they're calling for
No,
the
no, no. I
destruction
know,
of Hamas.
I know, and my big issue, and this kind of just echoes what I was saying, at the end of prior to when we spoke about the story, is if you want to call the attacks barbaric, call the attacks barbaric. That's fine. We all agree on that. But I really don't think that right now it's the position of the United States to be making these declaratory statements about, the fate of Hamas. There's this really big conflation. You hear it from Nikki Haley, you hear it from Lindsey Graham specifically, where they are talking as if Hamas directly attacked the United States, and that's not the case. And I understand we're staunch supporters of our allies, and we have their backs, and that's a hallmark of the American way. And I'm okay with that. I think that's one of the things that makes America remarkable on the world stage. but we can't continue to let people believe through rhetoric that this was some sort of a you know, indirect, direct attack on America to drum up support to get us involved in another conflict in the Middle East. It is just, these are the little moments and these little things spin the public up the more that they continue to hear it. And who knows, 12 months from now, maybe America's back in the Middle East, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, I
Nobody
think
wants that. So we have to be on top of the rhetoric now.
yeah, I think it's troubling though, because there is a side that obviously Hamas we know is backed by Iran dollars. I think that that's pretty clear. Iranian dollars at this point. I think that's pretty clear. And what I struggle with is that a lot of that is that money is fungible, and we paid Iran a lot of money with the Biden administration and the Obama administration through Iranian nuclear deals. Um, and money's fungible, so they use that money to then fund terror attacks against the biggest ally in the United States of the United States in the region, in Israel. And these are not people that are just saying, Israel should give land back to the Palestinians. That's not what they're fighting for. And I think to pretend that that's what they're fighting for is a real disservice. They're fighting for the eradication of the Jewish population. And I think that there's a difference there, because I don't think anybody actually in any real position of power in Israel is fighting for the destruction of the Palestinian people. I think that they are fighting for the destruction of Hamas and the destruction of Hezbollah, and and I think that genuinely, I think that they're fighting for Palestinians to be a part of the Israeli government, as there are many Palestinians in the Israeli government. They have a seat in the Israeli government. You can't say the same for the governments of Hamas and Hezbollah or Iran when it comes to Jews. Um, and I just genuinely, I understand what you're saying, that the United States shouldn't necessarily be directly involved, but I just where I disagree with you is this isn't just this isn't even the conflict like Russia and Ukraine, where genuinely I don't think that the government of Russia wants to kill every single Ukrainian and wipe them off the face of the earth. I think they just kind of want the land and to rule them, which is a problem in and of itself. Um, I genuinely think there's one side of the issue that wants to wipe the other peoples off the face of the earth, and I think that there's a difference there.
I would agree. There's clearly a difference in the motive. However, I'm still really on the fence about United States involvement in the conflict. I think our resources are spread way too thin to have this kind of involvement, and I don't see it as our place to put up too many American dollars, and if it gets to it, American lives, to fight an issue that does not directly involve us. And that's kind of where I land there.
Yeah, I don't think that that's I don't think that that is a necessarily a bad sentiment, right? It's obviously an isolationist sentiment, and that's fair enough. That was our foreign policy for a very, very long time in the United
Yeah,
States, and that's kind of a foreign policy that built the greatest nation the world has ever known.
yeah.
Um,
If it ain't
so
broken, don't fix it.
so I will say this: there is another story that lends to what's going on over there that we could talk briefly about, and that's
Okay.
going on in the universities, particularly the law schools, which kind of
Yes.
directly affect us. There's one story out of NYU law, and it's from actually the president of the Student Bar Association of the university, Raina Workman, who identifies as non-binary. So they had said in a statement to the students that Israel bears full responsibility for this tremendous loss of life. This regime of state sanctioned violence created the conditions that made resistance necessary. I will not condemn Palestinian resistance. And then quickly thereafter, a major law firm, Winston and Strawn, said that the comments profoundly conflict with its values, and without naming the student, said that it rescinded its offer of employment. Later, the dean of the law school, Troy A. McKenzie, said this message was not from NYU's School of Law as an institution and does not speak for the leadership of the law school. Later on, um, the SBA, the Student Bar Association, which is kind of like the student government association at the law school, issued a vote of no confidence for Workman, and it seems like they are going to lose their position as president. This also comes on the heels of Harvard Law, and or it might just be Harvard in general, but I'm pretty sure specifically Harvard Law School was doing this, where a coalition of student groups were holding Israel, quote unquote, entirely responsible for the violence. And on Tuesday, Bill Ackman, a prominent hedge fund manager, said that some chief executives had asked for a list of members in the student organizations to ensure that, quote, none of us inadvertently hire any of their members. So I think this goes to show the importance of rhetoric, the importance of how young people are handling what they say on social media, and even more broadly handling positions of power like president of the SBA, using a platform like that to issue statements that I can promise you there are a lot of students at NYU that do not support that at all, even remotely, what the SBA president said. And I can promise you that there are many members in the Harvard student groups that completely disagree with what they said. And now those students are at risk of losing potential jobs and high paying jobs in the financial sector because of what student leadership has done. And I think it's a lesson for all of these kids in school that shows that, like, quote unquote activism has repercussions, especially when you're dealing with something that you're talking about the brutal murder of innocent lives.
So one thing about the Harvard letter that I had read, which I thought was concerning, it was reported that following the letter, and those statements from Bill Ackman, that there was at least 4 websites that had doxed some of these kids in these organizations. So if you're unfamiliar with doxing, it's basically where some internet sleuth, somebody who's really skillful, basically finds out everything that there is to know about you, names, social media profiles, hometown. They were talking about these students had their past job experiences, like personal photos posted of them, as a way to sort of like retribution for posting these things. I think that is a wholly inappropriate response to this. And I'll again, I feel like I'm taking the hot controversial takes today, but if Bill Ackman doesn't want to hire somebody who signed on to this, that's on him. To make a public spectacle of it, I think is really inappropriate. Again, because at the end of the day, we can talk about the concerns with leadership and whether or not, all these signatories agree with what the leadership has written. And I think that's an issue worth discussing. But if you sign your name to this and you believe this, I don't know that this is something that you should be penalized for. I mean, we live in a country where we have the freedom of speech. We have the freedom of thought. You can say what you want. You can think what you want. And this issue, I want to make it so clear, I agree, is brutal. There was a brutal attack by a terrorist organization on a group of innocent people. That is never okay. Wholly condemn the acts. However, the issue at large, you cannot view this event in isolation. I think to view the event in isolation is inappropriate, and to make a comment on such a charged, very obviously two-sided issue should not open you up to the possibility of unemployment or being doxxed or all of these things. I think it's really a really inappropriate reaction, and something that unfortunately is a result of America's, staunch and steadfast support for the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, I would say 2 things to that. One is that the companies also live in the free country, that they can choose who they want to hire and who they don't want to hire, right? And so
Yes.
if they feel like statements were outside of their company values, they have every right to say that and say that we will not hire these people because of that. And I would say twofold: to pretend like these aren't the same people that called for people's jobs, 3 years ago because they weren't exactly towing the line during the BLM movement at its peak, and calling for people's jobs that maybe said, maybe cops aren't all bad. Maybe I like having police officers protect the streets. Um, these are the same people calling for their jobs, calling for the jobs of people because they didn't post a black square on Instagram. Uh, so to pretend like they aren't directly responsible for this type of
Culture.
environment and culture, I say, you know what? Good. You wanted this. So now you have to face up with the repercussions of your own actions. Workmen, I promise you, I can almost guarantee, and I don't know this for sure, but I think I'm stepping out on a really, really strong limb saying that workmen would have had no problem with, I don't know, sponsors pulling from the Tucker Carlson show if Tucker Carlson was showing support for Israel and whatever the case may be. I promise you they would have zero problem with that. This is the culture you want to live in. This is what's going to happen. Watch what you say.
See, and again, you make a great point. I just think, like, I chuckled when you mentioned the black square, because to me, it's just as ridiculous. And ultimately, I guess what my position on all of this comes down to is, we live in a free country. I can say what I want, sort of. Yeah, it's a charged, loaded statement, but
Within reason.
within reason, I can say what I want. I can support who I want to support. I can call for whatever I want to call for. But also, just because I have those freedoms and those liberties does not mean that I have to exercise them at every given opportunity when there is some sort of conflict that everybody is talking about. And I think that is my biggest problem here. I think that is why we have this issue going on at NYU, the same thing going on at Harvard. Any kind of discussions you're going to be hearing about people who are going to lose jobs or sponsorships or whatever it's going to be, I don't think that everybody needs to talk about their opinion. And I think young people, especially, have been led to believe, because we were born into this era, that you always have to have an opinion. If you don't post the black square, you're a racist. And then you have to walk around with this thought hanging over your head that all your classmates and peers saw you didn't post the black square and they think you're a racist, when really, maybe you just didn't want to post the black square. It's not really a commentary on your feelings about race. Maybe you didn't want to make a statement about the Israel and Palestine war because it's not your place. It doesn't mean that you support the terrorist organization Hamas and the brutal innocent killing of Israeli civilians. It doesn't mean that. So until people engage in conversation, have really thoughtful, discourse, I don't think that everybody needs to post these things. Unfortunately, the students at Harvard are learning this the hard way. The students at NYU are learning this the hard way. And at the end of the day, look, we should treat it for what it is. It's a serious issue. We're talking about innocent lives. We're talking about terrorist organizations. We're talking about hostile governments. We're talking about real life things. To think that you can boil it down to a letter from a bunch of kids at NYU or a bunch of kids at Harvard is so silly, and it does no service to the gravity of the situation. It shows that there was no thought, that there was no consideration for all of the factors, all of the players, all of the potential outcomes, and the entire history leading up to it. What I think happened is you saw an opportunity to get a quick gotcha, to take a hot stance, to have somebody talk about you and your organization, and you took it, and it's backfiring. And that is on you, no matter how much I disagree, with the way that it's done. That's on you.
Yeah, and I think another thing to talk about, and especially when it comes to our generation, there is nothing that bothers me more when a serious thing happens, like what's going on in Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, in Ukraine war. When Dobbs was decided, is an infographic slideshow on Instagram. There is nothing that bothers me more, and my favorite is that both sides do it, right? and they
Yep.
both have the same caption. Maybe you should educate yourself before you post. And you're just posting the same exact thing, but in support of you. It's like,
Hmm.
maybe you should actually educate yourself on something before it. And that's not posting an infographic. That's going to read the Supreme Court decision. That's going to read some actual history of the Israeli Palestinian conflict, because, like it or not, you're still going to be reading if you didn't know, because it's been going on for literally thousands of years. Okay, so you're going way back, machine. It didn't start in 1940, in the 1940s and 50s, when uh, the United Kingdom created Israel as a place and a safe haven for the Jewish people after World War II. That's not the start of this conflict. And if you think it is, I have news for you, pal. You're playing the same game as everybody else. You're just picking a later starting point. Um, if you think that, abortion is solved through an infographic, I got news for you. It's a lot deeper than that. So my point is, infographics, if you're getting your information and you think that posting an infographic for whatever side you've chosen to agree with on this particular issue is you showing that you're educated on an issue, you're not. Because they cherry pick the data just the same as the other side cherry picks the data.
That's correct. And I think the most important thing that you said, and it is worth doubling down on there, is like, at the end of the day, research and understanding is what's going to qualify you to have, an opinion. And like, what really, the one that got me about this was, did you see the 19-year-old Noah, whatever his name is, from Stranger Things? He
No, I didn't.
posted, and dude, I must have seen like 5 or 6 articles while I was scrolling X about this. That everybody was so proud that he was so young and he took such a big position on such an issue and blah 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 blah. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care what any 19-year-old has to say about the Israeli-Palestine conflict. I really don't. I really don't care what any 17-year-old has to say about abortion right now. Like, unless you've done the research, you've read the material, you understand it, you've engaged in thoughtful discourse, you've put in the groundwork to have an opinion on something that has real life consequences for real life people, I do not want to hear about it. And I would take this right back to what we're talking about, and I want to say, Harvard, whoever let that letter come out, whoever saw that and was like, yeah, send it, we maybe need to rethink about how you go about your position. Same for the person who let it fly at NYU. I don't think that these moments of human loss and tragedy need to be opportune for somebody to make a statement to get clicks or have a story written about them. It's sick. It is sick. We are talking about people's lives being lost innocently due to brutal violence from a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Nobody to Harvard or NYU students for any valuable form of information or position or opinion on this. So why they are offering it and why it is being made such a big deal is beyond me. Beyond me.
Yeah, I think it's the broader discussion, and we have to unfortunately wrap it up soon. But I think the broader discussion is, like you were saying, everybody thinks they have to have an opinion on every issue that goes on in the world, and quite frankly, you don't. And also, we have to pretend like celebrities, just because they're good actors or good singers or whatever they may be, good athletes. We have to pretend like they have some sort of moral or supremacy over other people, that their opinions matter more. Like, look, I'll be honest. Um, and this is just an example. Like, I don't care what Brad Pitt, which I don't know if he's even said anything, but it's just a random example. I don't care what Brad Pitt has to say about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or the Russian-Ukraine war or anything else, quite frankly, except for maybe how to star in a movie. You want to give your opinion on that? I'm all ears. But anything else, I don't care. I don't care. And I don't know why we have to pretend like we should care what Kim Kardashian says about what issue. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
we do.
I
We do have to.
the only one I'll give Kim K credit for is the issue going on in Armenia and Azerbaijan. She is of Armenian descent. She's done a lot of work for the Armenian people, and she's actually worked really closely with the Biden administration early on when they formally recognized it as a genocide. So, Kim Kardashian, I'll concede, she could
For
talk about
that, sure.
that
Or
particular international conflict.
Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis can talk all about human trafficking because they do a lot of work in the field. Obviously, that's different, but
Yeah,
you know, I don't. Quite frankly, I don't care what they have to say about something that's not that.
yeah. I think my biggest takeaway is listen, if you are Gen Z, if you're one of us, I think your time would be so much better used by really engaging with the necessary material, engaging with the history, and while the subject matter might be grim, given the particular conflict, it is a fun exercise to go and to learn about how these things develop. You learn a lot about culture, you learn a lot about humanity, you learn a lot about how people engage with each other, and it can be really rewarding. And it can and it will lead you to have a really well thought out, articulate opinion about something that has real life consequences. And when you have a real, articulate, thought out, supported opinion about something that deals with issues of such gravity, it is a really rewarding feeling. So I think your time would be better used actually engaging, thoughtfully, thinking about these things and avoiding the Instagram infographic, avoiding the tweet with the crazy headlines, and maybe keeping to yourself and understanding that, silence in a moment like this doesn't mean that you support or don't support somebody. And at the end of the day, you don't have to have a position on this if you do not want to have a position on this. If you're a law student and you have a 6-page paper due on Tuesday, and you also just took a midterm and you have all these other things going on, and you really don't have the capacity to form and have an opinion on the Israeli Palestine conflict, that's okay. Nobody's going to call you out for that. And I think as long as the young people and even the adults that watch this show, anybody, you don't have to have an opinion. You don't. And if somebody asks you about it and you don't have one, say, you know what, I'm not really educated. I'm not really in a position to talk about it. That's all you have to say. But if you go out on a limb and you say something erroneous, like the kids at Harvard at NYU, you might lose a job in the future. So weigh those options. Think about where you want to sit. And the best that we could do is just give our thoughts and our prayers to those who are affected. Send our support, however that may look for you, and be at peace with that.
Well, Steve, I couldn't have said it better myself, and I think it's a good place to end off the episode here. So with that, I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Steven Rombolo.
And I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and stay tuned for more Jersey First content on Jersey First YouTube. Hit that notification bell. Talk to you soon.